15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Mike Rashid. This is a special edition of Lions, Owls, and Elephants podcast. Today, a very special guest. I always have special guests, which is dope. Today's guest is an intuitive healer and a psychic medium. I'm going to let her explain exactly what that means. I want to welcome Carla. Thank you for coming, Carla.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting to be here. I'm very pleased and grateful.
Right.
I'm excited to kind of, talk with your viewers a little bit about, I guess, what I do and a little bit more about the spiritual world and, energy healing, which, has become much more popular in the last several years recently, even though it is actually ancient healing practice. And as you know, these were the methods and a lot of the tools in addition to plant medicines that were utilized by our ancestors for thousands and thousands of years,
Right.
So basically, as Mike said, I am an intuitive healer and a psychic medium. I work with tons of different modalities. I'll list, I guess, a few of them and kind of then give a broad idea of what that is.
I want to interject real quick. Because like you said, that it's been becoming more popular over the last few years. But here's the thing. So, I love history, and when you study like ancient Kemet, right, which is what they call Egypt now, but the proper term for that landmass was Kemet. And at the time you had Kemet, you had Ghana, you had Mali and Nubia. And in these places were at a certain point, this was like the center of the world in terms of education, right? All of the scholars from everywhere will come to that part of Africa to learn. Socrates, Plato, you name it. The people who we base our civilization off of is typically the Greeks, right? They were some of the main students of what it was called the Kemetic mystery system, right? And this type of healing, the esoteric, plant medicine, all of these things were a huge portion of the education.
Yes.
The education, this is crazy, was a 20-year process. You know what I'm saying? Whereas we have a university now, it's 4 years, depending on what you want to study. Then it was 20. No one outside of people from that region has ever completed 20 years. You know what I'm saying? I think the most was Socrates, and he did 8. It was either Socrates or Plato. You guys can Google this. This is real. It's out there. Kemetic mystery system. And so there was a huge sacking of that region, destruction of the libraries and the universities. So the knowledge that, if we're basing our highest form of knowledge on the Greeks, I mean, we're missing a lot because they destroyed the teachings that was higher than anything that they've had access to. And, we know that they had access to all of this, like the things that you do and you're tapped into. Even the pyramids themselves, people are still trying to figure out how, why. And over time, they're still figuring out little tiny its and pieces of it.
Yes.
And we're still so far from the wisdom. I mean, if you look at South America, Mesoamerica, West Africa, Central Congo, South Africa, Far East Asia, all of these places where there was so many, like, just different types of healing, different types of technology, you know what I mean, that we don't even know anymore, you know what I'm saying? But I'm very fortunate for people who, like yourself, who are tapped into some of these teachings that are not as popular as they once was.
Yes.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
No, but it's true. And I love that you are so aware of and know the history of these types of things, because it's like as I say, it's popular now, it's starting to resurface again, whereas these, exactly like you said, this was and you can see it if you look at kind of how things exist. Even if you study, say, Eastern religions, you study all of these various cultures and religions, and you go way back into, the stuff they discovered in anthropology, you will find that there are consistencies, and they didn't have cell phones, the internet. They weren't able to connect in the way that we are directly to share this information. So how then are these consistencies all across the board? They may have called things different things, but these various cycles, whether in India that's referred to as the yugas, right? These various ages that they talked about, the prophecies and different things, right? All of these, you will, if you were to study all of these different ones, because that's been something I've just done for years, is you will find there are consistencies in the information all across, right? And exactly like Mike said. So it's interesting, like as an intuitive, because a lot of kind of what comes in through, say, our channels or certain things, even before this became my work, it really was never my intention. I'll be honest. It wasn't something that my human vessel, myself, my avatars, Carla, really wanted to honestly do for work, right? It's something that I know came automatically, kind of that alignment of my soul, finding that unity with my body and my mind and that spirit, that real synergy of all is kind of what brought me to here. And so, with the kind of work that I guess I do, there's a wide variety, because I have, probably about 50 different certifications.
Yo, you already know that we got it on lock with plant-based protein. Planta literally is the best. What'd you say, Khaled?
It's just facts. You know what I'm saying? We the best.
We the best, baby. Check it out.
We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
I've studied everything for several years now, inside and out. I was born with certain intuitive gifts, just like anything passed in DNA, as I've shared with Mike. I do have in my family, and it's predominantly within the women, though there are some men, what we call or would refer to in my culture as seers, meaning that they had psychic vision, the ability to have prophetic dreams, to know things going on, to mediumship also, and seeing and communicating with spirits is something that was present with both of my grandmothers. I have several aunties that had those abilities as well. So coming into even this planet, this human physical body, those were things that I kind of already naturally had. It was passed, in the DNA. Also has to do with, if you look at ancient Filipino culture, shamanism, faith healers, all of that stuff was very prevalent in that culture before the Spanish came and all of this stuff kind of happened to those islands. And that it's actually still very widely practiced in certain areas, right? It's not uncommon. I know, a cousin of mine whose mom has gone to shamans to have, curses removed, energies removed, things that were causing bad luck, whatever else. So there's a really wide range kind of in what I do. I generalize it as psychic medium and intuitive healer. So one of the biggest things, obviously, as far as my services go, and the way most people come to me to begin with, is for psychic readings, right? So when you're talking about...
Just so people can understand, what exactly is a psychic reading? Because some people might think, like, hey, I don't know, like something real low-hanging fruit, like if I played the lotto today, will I win? You know what I'm saying? Or when should I win? When should I play to win? But I don't know. Do you get requests like that, or what type of help do people come to you for?
Okay. Well, as an energy worker, I've actually placed what I call standing commands on the type of people that come in. Picture that as an energetic filtration system. So it weeds out people.
The silliness.
Right? The silliness, the nonsense. And those that are meant to find me, that need to, will. Right? As you learn to control your energy, harness your vibration, the power that you actually have as a human being, you can create your own reality, right? Most of us are just functioning from a very unconscious state all the time. Oh, we think everything is fate, yada, yada, right? But when you learn to actually take the energy and that connection and develop it to, whether it's that God consciousness, source consciousness, creator of all that is consciousness, whatever way, it's all the same, right? Basically, then you become more in control of your creation. You can navigate and you can actually filter out and choose certain things. So for myself, I fortunately do not deal very often with people that have outlandish, ridiculous requests. When people tend to find me, if they come to me for psychic readings, I have advised in a whole breadth of different things. A lot of people, obviously, a common theme will be relationships. How do I attract, the one, blah, blah, blah. Why do I have all of these patterns? What is going on in my current relationship? Where is that going? Career. That is probably the biggest one people come to me for when they're at a crossroads.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, even me, people, one of the main things people talk to me about on social media is relationships. A lot. I'm talking about a good 70%.
Yeah.
More than training, more than nutrition is mostly relationships, because that's such a heavy topic for a lot of people. We as human beings, we're very social creatures. We thrive off of cooperation. Yeah. And that's why we're successful as a species, because we can communicate with each other, teamwork, and even like the concept of marriage and people being together. Life's easier with two people or three, whatever you're into. You know what I mean? So the more the merrier. But yeah, that's a heavy thing on a lot of people's hearts. Yeah. And it's interesting when I think about it. It's like, it's such an intricate situation to be in, because you have to manage your feelings and your emotions and communication, and then you have another person who has the same the same nuances, if not more, and you have to be mindful of theirs and be able to hear them and listen to them and be able to communicate properly. Is so much to it. It seems so daunting, So what kind of questions do they come to you for in that situation, in a relationship capacity, and how successful is what you're giving them to the outcome of their relationships?
Okay. Well, sometimes people come to me going, how soon until when will I meet the one?
Okay.
Right. And people either love working with me or they hate it, because I'm very to the point. I tell them like it is. And, everyone's here, it's going to be next week. And if it's 4 to 5 years down the line, I'm going to tell you 4 to 5 years down the line. But also I will tell them, this is what you need to work on, and this is why, right? Meaning that we exist in a reality where there are multiple timelines and trajectories playing all at once. Our free will can affect all of those things. Meaning that if you want to attract a certain relationship into your life, but you have healing and lessons you need to go through, self-work to do. If you do that self-work, you can take that 5-year timeline, speed it up to 2 years, right? That's your free will. You're not going to do it if you just sit there wanting it and thinking about it and doing nothing, right? You got to put in the work. People, and what's amazing is my clients that do listen, like I had a great validation from one the other day. She goes, you said to me last year, she likes to do yearly reading with me. She goes, last year you said that I was going to meet this person. You described them exactly, what they would be wearing, right? Their personality, everything. And she said, 3 weeks before the 1 year mark hit, I met this person, right? And she said, everything was very aligned, exactly what you said, right? She originally had trajectory like 3 years. We mapped out, this is the self-work you need to do. These are the things you need to work on for yourself, because if you want to call in this kind of man, you need to be this kind of woman, right? You cannot vibrationally bring into your space that of which you desire unless you are a match for it. You have to level up to that. Your
gifts, it's a blessing to have these kind of gifts, right? I feel like it's very practical. I don't think that is I know a lot of people look at it as woo-woo, magic, and magic is real.
Yes.
The fact that we're transmitting from our vocal cords into this microphone and millions of people are getting this broadcast, right, is magic in itself. We're not plugged into anything, right? So, and we're on this planet. Let's say we are plugged into the walls, whatever. This planet isn't plugged into anything. It's sitting in the middle of space, right? So when you understand things, like me personally, there's a lot that I don't know, right? But I'm very inquisitive and always wanting to learn. So when I learn, like, say, the mechanism of something in the body, I had a conversation this morning in the gym with the guy. He's my buddy. He's we're locker neighbors. And we talk in the locker room, and we talk for like 30 minutes a day. And he's a neurosurgeon, right? High level stuff. Young guy, super sharp. And we were talking, and you know, he does a lot of, like, I asked, does he participate in any studies? Because there's a lot of things that I'm interested in medicine and science that I would 100% invest in for some studies. So he does things with machines, devices, but we talked about drugs, right? And we talked about how they use different drugs to, like, people that's in a vegetative state. They're trying to use different things to see if they have any kind of, like, if it's activating anything, to see it, because it's a big debate whether what's conscious or not when the people are in that place, and is no one answer, right? So so anyway, I get to talking, and I'm like, look, you know, I wonder if anyone's doing a study on us humans being able to manipulate, like, things like, say for instance, serotonin and dopamine and all of these things without, say, a drug. Like, say for instance, a psychedelic drug, you know, the classic psychedelics binds to the two-way serotonin receptors. So it's not giving you serotonin. It's just turning on the faucet to get a dump of it, so you're happier, right? I'm like, why can't we do that ourselves, right? Because we are able to do things like when our cortisol levels spike, when we're stressed, that fight or flight response, literally your pupils dilate, your nostrils flare open to breathe in more oxygen, you clench your teeth, your veins and arteries restrict, right? And you're ready to fight or run, right? That's hormonal, and that's all in the body, and we're doing it ourselves, right? Based on how we perceive some external stimuli, right? It's nothing we're taking. So he was like, yeah, that's true, you know? And, you know, if you get mad and you want to yell at somebody, but you don't, and you calm yourself down with breathing or whatever, that's just a natural way of, you know, manipulating hormones and neurons and things like that. So when you have a conversation like this, it becomes very apparent that we do control a lot of things within us that seems magical, but it's very practical, right? So just because we haven't figured out yet the mechanism of what we can do to bring on more happiness or whatever in our brains in a big capacity, say like a drug would do, like LSD or mushrooms, doesn't mean that we can't, right? And when you look at the mechanisms of other things that we have figured out in the body, it seems 100%, 1,000% possible. We just haven't gotten there yet, right? So even with things that you're tapped into, you know, with your intuitive healing and being aware of certain things, it's not like you drank something and you're able to figure all of this stuff out. You focused on yourself long enough to tap into that, right? So I think that's really fascinating and something people should think about, because I just see everything as normal and practical. It's regular. Just some people are more trained in certain things than others. Some people become experts at certain things, right? Because that's where they focus their attention at.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's actually forms of, you know, energy healing in people that do specialize in working with the human physical body. You know, for myself personally, that is not where I feel is my specialty. Everybody has their things, right? So I focus on different stuff, but there are several vibrational healers and people that use certain types of means that understand how to manipulate vibrations, tones. I mean, there's videos that I'll share with you at some point to where, you know, it's faith healers, and these people are in remote villages of Thailand, of, you know, Indonesia, and all of these parts. And it's all being documented and recorded. And, you know, you have, you know, the ultrasound there. And there are cases, you know, that people with these, you know, stage 4 tumors and, you know, huge masses of, you know, metastatic cancer cells, it's like you literally see if that person, you know, with the right faith healers, and those that are, I mean, these are people that, you know, it's a cultural thing. They've been trained their whole life. And if the person receiving it truly believes that it's possible to heal and that this will work, there's, you can find hundreds of videos online if you look deep enough, and you will see on that screen in live time these actual tumors shrinking and dissipating into nothing.
It was more like an inner body experience. My left leg had no feeling in it, had no feeling in it since the first stroke. And then she started to pull, and it was like pulling sandpaper under the skin. They said, told me to get off the bed. She kept saying, come on, come on, come on, walk.
Hello.
Hello.
Why are you crying? Why are you
Because
crying?
I'm walking without my walker. I haven't done that for a lot of years.
I still can't believe in a way that it's happened, but it has.
Wow,
Right.
that's crazy.
So, those are things that do exist. As I said, that's not my specialty. I, have studied intuitive anatomy, meaning that I have the ability to look into somebody's organ system and to see. But generally, when I use these tools, I will be doing some healing if there's blockages. But a lot of the time, I will be told, okay, this is what kind of specialist you need to see. This is what kind of doctor. This is what's going on that somebody is missing, right? So I've done this many times for animals, for humans, etc. But I don't actually, focus that much on the actual healing of the body in that sense, right?
I feel like perspective is everyone's superpower. It can make your life suck or great. For me, I utilize my perspective in a way like this. I have a thing that I say always, and it goes, only good things happen to me. So literally there's nothing in my life there's no event in my life that I've ever been through that was bad. And if someone is to point something out to me, I'm going to tell them how much that benefited me. And the heavier it is, the more I get from it, right? So it's because of my perspective. So I'm a winner. I win. I'm on top. Like, I'm good.
Yes.
Nothing. It allows me to not worry about things, for one. But two, I also, there's another quote that I didn't come up with, but it's just so profound. And it's, life is what you make it. Like, it is. It so is. And when people really like let that sink in and believe it, their behavior will be a lot different. The decisions they make will be a lot different. How hard they work or study or whatever will be a lot different, So these things, these perspectives is once again, like, you're in a spiritual world doing work on people in that capacity. Here, I'm doing the same thing in a very normal way from my perspective, you know what I mean? But the outcome is the same, And that's what I want people to try to understand is, like, this stuff is not far out. It's just that culturally we don't learn these things. We're not around it. Some people are, but most people, especially in the West, are not,
Yes.
And I want to bring it back to something that you said about the past lives, right? I think I told you about the story about the egg. It's a story about the egg. So it's kind of like, it's a lot to do with, like, the Buddhists, how they tell their story on life, right? And they believe that, excuse me, most people on earth are at the same level, right? And they don't believe in death. They believe in reincarnation. So most people are on a level. They're not evolved yet, right? They're not fully conscious, not fully awake, not fully evolved. So they're going to have to come back and do it again. Now, there's another small percentage of people, let's say around 10%, that are conscious and aware and evolved. However, they call them magicians. So this would be like the evil politicians and lawyers and bankers and people who know what's up, but doesn't share that wisdom with nobody. You know what I mean? So they're like the bad guys. Then there's another even smaller percentage, maybe 5% or so that they get it. They're aware, they're evolved, they're conscious. And those people will move on to the next stage. And in their doctrine, it's a star, which is fascinating because stars have a lifespan like humans, just a lot longer, right? They're born from two other stars, right? Other stars exploding, coming together like like having sex, and then they start out small and dim and grow big and strong and powerful. And as they get old and it's time for them to die, they get small but more dense, more strong, more powerful, like an old wise person.
Yes.
And then they explode, and that cycle starts somewhere else, right?
Yes.
So we don't know what that level of consciousness is. We don't know what it's like being a star, right? But I don't even know if that's really accurate. That's what's going to happen. But it's fascinating that this notion came out 30 or thousands of years ago, and people believe this, right? Now, the people that gotta do it over, they come back. They go into a rest, right? And if the majority of the deeds of their lives were good, they go into a state of nirvana. And nirvana is beautiful. It's what it is the things that you enjoyed and loved the most in people and things, you get that. So the amount of your good deeds will be the size of a rock dropped into an ocean, right? And the ripples that go out is going to be dependent on the size of the rock. The bigger, the more. And then when it comes all the way back, then that's when you wake up and you go to your next stage. But for most people, they say next stage will be another human, and you pick up on a level of consciousness that you left off at, right?
Exactly.
So, right. And then people who did bad deeds, they don't necessarily go to hell. They just sleep in the same deal. The amount of bad deeds you did, the size of that rock, and it'll determine the amount of time that you're asleep, that you're resting. Then you start over and try again, right? And then there's a lot of nuance to it, right? Karma. So you might come back as a fucked up person or a handicapped person, whatever, right? So, but nonetheless, it's all, cosmically, and from taking a bird's eye view, looking down on everything, life is fair.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
Now, life is not fair in like interpersonal dealings, because people, we have free will, and we could be bad. We can take advantage of people. Absolutely. We can stomp on smaller people. We can lie and deceive, right? So yeah, life does not seem fair for the most part. But cosmically speaking and viewing it from a spiritual place, everything catches up.
Yes.
Everything catches up. And even that asshole or whomever who's abusing people or lying to people, deceiving, is going to catch up to them.
Yes.
And sometimes we'll watch somebody, maybe a colleague or somebody in our field or whatever, advancing really fast with salacious practices, right? And it'll bother us. But we should never worry about that. Like, fuck it.
Yeah.
We stay on the straight and narrow.
Exactly.
And whatever's going to happen to them, it's going to happen. I don't even need to pay attention to it.
Yeah, that I could not put it better myself. And even with kind of what you shared about Buddhism, if you were to study Hinduism, there's pretty much very similar, almost exact parallels, right, there as well. And what there are actual universal laws, and people that are highly spiritual or aware of these things study that, or even those of us sometimes that didn't study it, it's channeled to us at a certain point, right? It's just once that connection awakens, if it's a divine time ticker that went off, like kind of for me, all of a sudden you wake up one day, you're a different person, right? And what I always say is like, these universal laws, and I love this, and I go, some people go, I don't believe in this and that's not. I said, it's okay. I don't care. The truth doesn't care if you believe it or not. It doesn't change what it is. So I go, and anyways, I was like, I can take my consciousness and project it multidimensionally in multiple ways. So when you die, I'm going to show up and be like, hey, what's up? And you're going to be like, oh, she was correct, right? Just for fun, right? But what I say to people as well is just like you said, like with karma, et cetera, that is a universal law. That's actually a very strong spiritual law. It's actually referred to as the law of cause and effect, right? And I love, like, I forget which one of Newton's laws it was, is that, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? That is karma in essence, right?
That's a very practical way of putting it. You know
exactly.
what I mean? A scientific way too.
Yes.
So my teachings is called the Nation of Gods and Earths, and our numbers are very similar to that of Buddhism, right? In which 85% of the people are, kind of like just not awoke yet, right? Dumb, deaf, and blind in a figurative sense, right? And then you have the 10% who are, the wicked, the ones who are deceiving people, not sharing information. And then you have a smaller 5% who are the poor righteous teachers who are trying to lead the deaf, dumb, and blind into salvation, right? And civilize the uncivilized. So, you know, it only makes sense, like, if at 18, 17, 16, when I'm learning the mathematics and the sciences, I never knew I would be having a podcast trying to, like, enlighten people and guiding people to live an upright life. You know, trying to show people just better ways and more ethical ways, and, you know, just how to really optimize their lives, even from a physical health level, because that's very important. So, but it all makes sense. Like, sometimes people are, you know, you're born into a certain lane, with a certain thing on you, and the manifestation of that is what we do in our everyday lives. And, like, I'm a servant. I'm here to serve you, all of them out there, whoever I encounter. So it's only right, you know. And I couldn't see my life any other way, you know.
Well, yeah, but that's a beautiful thing. But you are living, you know, your soul purpose. You're living, you know, that of which is, and at the end of the day, that's what I believe the greatest fulfillment kind of comes from, right? Because, like I said, it was never my intention to go into this work.
Right.
It never was, right? And I remember, you know, for myself, just being approached by psychics, like, randomly for about 10 years of my life before I reached that point. And, you know, I have a sketch past just like everybody else. I embrace everything I chose to do, everything I went through. I have no regrets whatsoever, right? And I remember I was like, you know, what we referred to as cokehead Carla, back when all these prophecies and crazy things would be given to me. And there would be all these intuitives, because I admit I did not like my intuitive gifts as a child. I hated them, right?
That's interesting.
Because I did not understand how to harness the power and to control them, right? And so what happens was that I would get harassed by bad spirits. I would see demons, I would see entities, I would see all kinds of things.
This is so crazy you're saying this.
All of it. And I could not, because I was afraid, because I didn't understand how to utilize my power, they could harass me. Now, I deal with exorcisms, whatever you want to call it, haunted buildings, everything in between. I have no fear. That lack of fear protects me.
Carla, I gotta say something. This is crazy. So, like, so many powerful people have come into this room that I've met, right? I just met a guy yesterday, Wes Watson, powerful, right? There's a guy I'm good friends with named 19 Keys. He comes often, very powerful, right? A guy, Chris Gethin, powerful. A guy named Wall Street Trapper, powerful. People that's been through a lot of shit, like spent years in prison, right? But now are multi-millionaires, right? But they live a life of service. They're giving people something, right? Something meaningful. You'll never know these people had any filth on them, right? But so many people, and then here come you, right? And you're saying some things right now that's waking up certain memories. These memories were never dormant. I remember all of this stuff vividly, but I never really looked at it in a certain way until you just said what you said. Now, when I was young, I used to think that I messed everything up. Like, there's a certain part, because I thought too much, right? So, all right, let's say we're supposed to go somewhere or do this or do that. I think it through like a billion times, right? I always say to this day, I live 1,000 lives, because I run so many models in my head of every possibility of how everything can turn out, right? So when you're young, you're like, damn, I'm messing everything up because nothing's exciting anymore, right? I know that I'm not excited. Like, people always ask me, are you excited? I'm like, nah, I don't have enthusiasm, and it's okay. Don't worry, I'm good, right? But as a kid, I hated that. And I was terrified of scary things. You know what I'm saying? The dark, sounds, scary movies, right? Demons. And I got to a certain age to where I'm like, please come out. Please, I wish something was in here. You know what I'm saying? It started out with me psyching myself out because I was afraid. But that practice turned into like the highest of confidence to where I'm not afraid of anything. So, and I'd be talking shit like, I wish a demon would come out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll fuck them up. Like,
well, let's not wish that.
No, I'm just saying. But I literally, if that's a thing, I have zero fear of it, because I face demons in a physical form.
In a human physical form.
And I walked through wherever, I've walked through hell. I've literally when you read the rapture and Revelations, when I had this walk, it was literally exactly how they described it. How that archangel throws you into this pit, and then in the walls is tortured souls reaching at you, screaming. You know what I'm saying? And you hear this, and it's an abyss, right? When I was a fugitive a few years ago, and when they came and got me, they put me in a max security facility in LA, and it was dark, endless halls with people reaching, screaming, talking, the silliest, most ignorant shit you'll ever hear. And it doesn't stop from sun up to sundown. And you don't even know when the sun is up or down because there's no windows, no concept of time, right? And it was very spiritual in a very dark, demonic way. I've seen types of humans that I've never seen before. Scary motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? And I thought I was a scary motherfucker. I'm like, nah, that's a devil. That's a demon right there. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I've been around it. I've been there. I don't fear any of it. You know what I'm saying? So, and whatever is to be will be.
Exactly.
What are we gonna do? You know what I mean?
Well, as you go deeper into spiritual practice, also too, you can't be awakened and hold yourself as a victim, because you come to realize that your soul chose every experience, every hardship, everything as a means, because your soul doesn't care about comfort. Your soul cares about ascension. Your soul cares about you finding your true path to be there for others, to serve this planet, serve this world, serve through your human physical body, for whatever means that takes. And what better way to become that person and develop that compassion and understanding for others than to go through hell and hardship and difficulty, right? And so I remember as you go through your awakening and some of the things, sometimes, I'm very blessed. My clients tend to come to me to a certain state, and even if they're not ready for the message, because the first thing I teach them is ultimate accountability over your creation. Well, how did I create this? Like, I didn't create, why would I create this and that? I go, you may not have, but your soul did, right? For me, what did I create? I will be quite honest. To get to where I am and become who I am, well, I created, my soul chose to learn, and I understand why. Chose to learn through the experience of repeated sexual abuse from the time I was about 5 years old until I was about 12. Continuous, right? Multiple people, right? And then what did I then choose to experience on a human free will level to run away from that, deal with that? Drug addiction that lasted over a decade and nearly took my life multiple times. What also came with that? Well, I worked in strip clubs. I was a sex worker. I was with Playboy, with Penthouse. I was everything in between, and a lot of other shady businesses. I was a downright ugly person in bitterness, hate, and anger for a long time before my awakening. And only out of my own desperation, I remember it was like after, I could feel, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to overdose, but this time I was alone, right? And I will admit, at that point in my life, I believed in psychics, intuitives, all that, but I did not believe in God or any form of that. I had so much anger and hatred in my heart. And I remember that was like the first time in probably over a decade I prayed. And I said, look, if there's a God or whatever's going on up here, if I wake up, tomorrow, I promise I'm going to change my life. I'm going to change my path, right? Because I'd been there, and when I had overdosed before, I was fortunate to be in the presence of a significant other or somebody I was dating, meaning that I got the help, I got to the hospital, I got the help I needed. This time I was alone, right? And I'd had periods of sobriety, relapse, up and down cycle. And, like I told Mike, I was on the run at this point, right? I had issues, friends were starting and family members coming at me about my addiction. I didn't want to hear it. I had 2 homes, a home in Vegas, home out here in Orange County. And I remember people in Vegas got concerned. And so I was like, oh, F y'all, I'm out of here. I'm going to go back to somewhere else, do my thing. And that was the path. And I remember going, through kind of that program and really struggling in AA and Narcotics Anonymous with the one piece of you have to have a faith in a higher power to heal, right? And finally, I had a sponsor, a woman who said to me, you need to get to the bottom of why you do drugs. That's why she's like, you've had over 2 years clean at a time. It's not about the physical addiction for you. It's about why you use. And so what happened was I I remember going to therapists, all this stuff, being given all those Prozacs, all those pills, to deal with my abuse and all the things I endured as a child. And I was like, well, none of this works. And I stumbled upon energy work and receiving it from healers by accident, out of desperation, out of, I will try anything and everything I can until I get to what it is.
Right.
Well, this has been a common thing I even hear from my clients. I realized and felt shifts from working with hypnotherapists, Reiki masters, energy workers, sound vibrational healers. I felt shifts within a few months from that I did not experience in 15 plus years of therapy. And this is a common thing some of my clients say to me, right? And that was kind of how I began it. And that was how I started to explore. I never wanted to do the work myself.
Right.
Like for others, I was like, this is great that these services exist.
Right.
Right. But, sometimes your soul in the path chooses you. Right. My psychic gifts were not numb, but they were kind of like dulled when I was a drug user, right? Like heavy, because I was cocaine, pain medication, and anxiety medication, lots of ecstasy. I mean, those were my main things, but particularly, cocaine habit of like 6,000 a month, right? For a very long time.
Wow.
And it's just, from myself personally, once I healed from that, all of a sudden, all the gifts I had as a child and everything flooded back. But this time the approach was different. I said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to be afraid. Clearly, this is something that I'm supposed to have. And I remember going and putting the wish out there saying, then help me to find the teachers and the people who can teach me to utilize what I have so I can live a normal life. If you I've worked with multiple schizophrenic people, okay? And yes, is there a chemical imbalance? Absolutely. But there's a very fine line, we joke as intuitives, between being schizophrenic and being a medium. Right? Schizophrenic people, every single schizophrenic client I've had has the ability to perceive and to see the things that are happening in multiple dimensions, etc. The difference between them and myself is I can perceive and know this physical reality from that, even though they may be occurring multiple things at once, right? All at one time. I know what is, I can differentiate the lines.
Right. Let's talk about that for a minute with schizophrenia and people really believing that they're dealing with something else that we don't see. Right now, there's a person very close to me all my life that suffers from that has that condition. And she say things that it literally scares me, and I know when she's not on her medication because she calls me at very odd hours and she's talking matter-of-factly of them coming under her door to have sex with her. Like they come under my door to have sex with me. You know what I'm saying? And it tears me apart because I know that in her mind, she's really experiencing these things, right? She used to say things like, if you open the door, if they knock, don't open the door because they'll come in. You don't know they're in here, right? She gave me a description one time of a body, a shadow that was not on a wall, that ran by her. Somebody else that doesn't know this person on the other side of the country, we're talking about ghosts. This was like in college. And that person described the same thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like floored. But anyway, this person shifts into that back and forth, right? When she's not on her medication, and it hurts my soul because I know she's dealing with it. And who's to say that they're not experiencing that? This is someone I've known all my life that's been dealing with these things, right?
Yes.
They are dealing with it. They're experiencing it. It's real, So when we think of like a dimension, let's talk about it in a very practical sense so people can understand. A dimension is just a bunch of directions, right? We live in the 3 or perceived 3, right? Now, your favorite scientists can do calculations of 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up, dimensions. However, we don't know how to experience it. We don't know where it's at. It's not to say that it doesn't exist. For instance, insects have short lifespans. Some of them just hours, right? Some of them, they crawl forest floors They don't have necks. They don't have the ability to climb or fly. So they're two-dimensional. They can go this way, that way, back and forth, right? So if a human was to step in front of him, he has no idea that there's a whole human. They just see this sliver.
Yeah.
Just this thing right here, right in their sight, in their, whatever they can observe, right? So to them, it's not no such thing as a human.
Yeah.
But there is, because we know, because we're here, right? We can manipulate their world. They can do nothing to ours. So listen, these conversations are already being had in the academia community, in the scientific community. I follow a lot of string theorists, theoretical physicists, physicists in general, right? And I'm like, wow, they're talking about this shit, right? But it's not talked about in the public arena much at all, because it's a conversation for the micro and not the macro. We're not there yet. We don't understand these things yet. But these other dimensions are there, right? We don't know nothing about them, right? So who's to say, like, let's say schizophrenia. There's a however many million people who have schizophrenia, right? Who slip in and out of these different states. They're all making this up? I doubt it. You know what I'm saying? So people should really be cognizant to the fact that there are people who slip in and out of different consciousness, right? And even in your capacity to where it's not a negative, it's a positive, and it's something that you could use to help people. There's some people that just get sucked in and can't handle it. You know what I mean? Some people that get sucked in and they're able to use it for good, right?
Yeah.
Just like a cell phone. A cell phone, people complain so much about social media. People are not communicating anymore. They're busy on cell phones. They're wasting time. Yeah, but a lot of people are connecting and communicating in very meaningful ways on their phones with social media. A lot of people are studying, researching, doing powerful things with that tool. Some aren't, right? It's affecting them negatively because it is what it is, and others positively. That's a very practical way to look at anything, right? Everything is just a tool.
Yeah.
An ability to shift and go into different states of consciousness is just a tool. It's just a place to go or whatever. It's not good or bad, but how we're able to deal with it determines whether the outcome is good or bad.
Yeah.
People really, I really want people to open their minds up to that and understand that it's not always all bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like with one thing, you know, that there is common that I do find with schizophrenia is that there is a chemical imbalance present, which is why when I do work with those clients, I encourage them, you need, you know, to stay on your meds, etc. Right? There's certain things. A lot of the times, I will have patients that deal and struggle with certain mental illness. They go, you know, this doctor, I don't like them, blah, blah, blah. I go, well, why not? Whatever, right? And so common service for me is when people have a decision to make is that I'll go, okay, present to me a list of names of doctors you need to go to. It doesn't matter what this endocrinologist, psychologist, etc. And
types?
I will go through that list of names and I would tell you who is the best one or whatever. And then from there, I'll break it down. What are the aspects about this person, right? Trajectory reading. So that's something that's very common. You know, and in regards to schizophrenia, the thing is that intuitives like myself are actually able to access and be right here. I could be standing here next to you and be in the 14th dimension at the same time, simultaneously. I can see it. You know, the way for me it'll be is I see you in my physical eyes, and I can access, if I need to, multiple dimensions. I can access, you know, the spirit realm and have 3 movie screens playing behind my eyes, right? Each one showing and categorized, right? But imagine that if I could not do that, or say that I saw it with my physical eyes happening all around me at once. What do you think that would do? Complete and total chaos, right? So for schizophrenic people and my clients, what I find, it's a combination of somebody that literally has 1 foot in and 1 foot out in the physical and non-physical dimensions at the same time, but also with a chemical imbalance, right? Like one of my clients, one of my regulars at one point, it was the first time I worked closely with a schizophrenic, you know, client, and he said, you know, I really want you to help my sister. My sister has schizophrenia, and he goes, so he's like, and it's unmanageable now. He said, as the years have gone on, she's become increasingly volatile and violent. She refuses to take meds. She now is attacking our parents, right? She's a grown woman already. And so I said to him, okay, well, let me see and look into what happened or what's causing this, what I can do, because I'd never encountered it, right? I love cases I've never encountered. It's like the first time I worked on somebody in a coma, right? All of these things excites me, right? Because I'm like, oh, wow, what do I need to do? And the first thing I said to him was, I said, okay, well, when I look at your sister, I said, did this develop at the age of 15 years old? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay. I said, and before that, she was a great student, et cetera, and I came on very suddenly, rapid onset. I said, he's like, yeah. I said, when she was 15 years old, I see her at a house party and she was raped. That triggered it. Okay. Something happened in that moment and that triggered, she already had a genetic predisposition, but that was the trigger. For a lot of schizophrenic people, there's often a trigger in life. Somebody very close to me, his mother passing away at age 11, right? A very impactful thing at a developmental age triggers it, right? And so I remember, and I said to him, okay, well, the thing with your sister as well, I said, is she's going to have to be on meds for her whole life. That's the thing. I said, but when she actually goes into these states, I said, when she yells at your parents, I was like, she doesn't necessarily speak Ethiopian, but she yells at them in it, right? But she doesn't speak it like herself, like she's not taught. He's like, yeah, we were born and raised here in the United States. I said, okay. I said, there are some actually like not so good ancestors that do co-possess her, because what happens with people in that state, in that chemical imbalance, is that their energy is actually very open, like a psychic's, completely open, but no filters, no protection, meaning good, bad, anything, right, has free reign. So we did work on that. And he gave me an update like a week later. He's like, and then a few months later, right? And he goes, okay, she stays on her meds. He said, yes, she still sees the things, she's still whatever. He's like, but she's no longer violent. And I said, yeah. I said, what she's seeing is real. Don't get me wrong. But it's just about now like calibrating something, right? Like when you're tuning something, you're doing whatever, you can't get rid of the condition. Her soul chose to learn through that. She needs those medicines, but now it's more manageable, right? And, so it was interesting. As soon as I work with someone that's different, that I've never conquered, once I master something, guess what? A whole influx of new comes in, right? A very common reading, and you said this even with the neurosurgeon, right? The first time I was asked to read somebody in a coma, like, his fiance had come to me and it was a really intense situation. And this was kind of in conjunction with, like, I have worked on murder cases, very, those types of things. And usually I'm used to dealing with spirits that have passed on, right? And those shadowy figures you've talked about, those are a specific type. There's ghosts, there's spirits that have passed made to light. There's all these categories, right? And just like dimensions, they exist within different kind of what you call like planes of existence, right? Depending, and like you said, even when you were referencing, like in, those Eastern religions where depending on what your deeds are, if you're unsettled, that's actually very true. And as an intuitive, I have seen that firsthand, right? Not all spirits exist within the same realms. It's not just you die and you're here, you're there. There is a whole spectrum, right, of what we see. And so I remember this woman came to me and she said, I'd known her for a long time and I knew her through, certain industries. She knew me from when I was in my shadier life. And she goes, I think it's so cool who you've become and this woman that you are. Like it's fascinating, it's amazing, and like much respect. And it was a very intense thing because she wanted a multiple reading. And I said, okay, since I've never done this before, I won't charge you till after. If I can't do it, it's free. And she said, I said, tell me what I need to know. She said, her boyfriend was involved in very big, like music producer type thing. Okay. And she said, one night, what happened was he was, out with the boys, like they had just left an event. He'd done a lot of drugs that night. Basically, he overdosed in the back, big limo, something they didn't know, or big car, they didn't know. They realized it as they were driving. So they dropped his body, not wanting to get caught. They pushed his body out of the car, very close to the emergency room, but not close enough to where cameras could see.
Oh, man.
Okay. And he was pronounced brain dead, right? He was in a coma. And he had been in a coma at this point for, I think it was about 2 months already. And she wanted to know, can you talk to him? Can you reach him? Like, I need to know what's going to happen. Like, they'd been high school sweethearts. Like, do I stay with this man? What do I do? Will he ever come out of it? Will he be in a vegetative state? What is the outcome? And then she also wanted to know what happened that night. Who was he with? And the first thing I said to her was like, okay, first and foremost, I said, your man, I said, he was no snitch in this lifetime. She's like, yeah. And I was like,
He was?
He was not.
Okay.
I said, when I'm connecting to him right now, he don't want to tell me who was in the car with him. He don't want to show me, because you got to understand, if I leave my body and I'm a spirit, I'm still retaining those qualities, right? And it was interesting because when I first went to connect to him, it wasn't like a normal spirit that's passed to the light, and it wasn't like a spirit that's trapped in between earth and spirit realm, right? It was like this weird space where he was just in nothing, and he could see. He could see his family members, but he couldn't communicate. He couldn't go in his body. He was just there, just like him. And then since he wouldn't give me the answers, I said, okay, since you're being difficult, right? I said to him, I was like, I'm going to find out who, excuse my language, who was in that car with you, whether or not you like it. So I said, okay, show me. What are the details I can know? What do I need to see? So I described to her the SUV, and I said, okay, I hear street names, right? So these are the names that these people went by. One guy's got these dreads, and he's got this gold grill. The other one, blah, blah, blah. There's 3 men in the vehicle. And these are the names I hear. I said, they already pulled their social media, I think, because of this. I said, but if you talk to the people that know whatever, you will get to them, right? So she was able to get closure, to understand, to know, okay, right? Because as an intuitive, right, this is talking about, what is the saying? Like, there's sometimes like you can take multiple paths to get into the same place.
Different roads to get to the same place.
Exactly. So as an intuitive, that's what I do. Okay, he wouldn't give it to me directly. So I found another doorway, a loophole, another direction to enter and to go in through, right? So even with healing work, sometimes it's not direct. It's not what you think, right? But it's just like, these are things to help a client, because things, these are crazy situations, some of them. Like I said, I've done murder cases. I've done things where they've then taken the information, gone to the cops. The cops went back and looked at these things and said, okay, you know what? Actually, what this psychic said makes sense. And then the police then discover the hard physical evidence needed with those clues given, right? Practical situations. I have people come to me for court cases. Okay, who's a lawyer I should hire? What should it be? What is the outcome? Whether things are good or bad, I keep it very real, right? So people go, oh, all this stuff is Mrs. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of fakes out there, right? But it's like, you can use these tools for decision making and the things that you need to know in life. Do I take path A, B, or C? I've got 3 job offers. What does it look like 1 year down the line here, 5 years down the line? What are the things I need to know? All of that can be looked at, right? And so those are the ways, right, that a lot of people nowadays are realizing, oh, you can use these things to navigate life, to have insights. Sometimes someone has to go through hardship. I go, hey, you're going to have to go through 6 months that are really hard. But these are the things you can do to help you get through it on a mental and emotional level. And then I'll always get emails. I went through that period and it sucked.
Right.
But I would play the recording of your reading. I would read my notes, and it would help me to get through it, knowing A, it wasn't permanent, and B, that if I utilized these different things or methods, or I made certain decisions, that it would help me to process and deal with it better.
It's fascinating. So when you, like in a situation like that, when you were in communication with his spirit, what does he do? Like, well, first of all, did he ever regain consciousness, or is he still brain dead?
No, they chose to remove him eventually from his because
Okay, so he's deceased, no longer with us.
Yes, no longer with us. And at that point, I did tell her this is the route that film
was he
would
an artist
choose.
or a producer or what?
He was producer, so on that end of it.
So, okay, did you have, when you go and communicate with someone's spirit for someone, right? Like, let's say I had you communicate with someone's spirit for me, right? And that's the situation, and they're kind of like not dead but not alive or whatever. And let's say when the job is done, do that person still have access to you?
No, because I shut that off. I don't like to be bothered because there are occasions where spirits, if it is a divine thing and it's really needing help, they will be able to communicate with me without me asking them to. Like, you know, that does happen when I travel to various places of land, right, on occasion. It's part of what my soul also contracted to do. Like I have a lot of ties in past lives and Native American lifetimes. Native American spirits always find me. If they're trapped, if they're stuck in a timeline, that's a different case or scenario, right? But sometimes on occasion, I mean, like one of my good friends, right? His grandmother is part Native American. He's mostly Italian though. And, you know, here's the thing. She can visit him in dreams and he has some intuitive gifts, not as refined as me. Sometimes his grandma, and she's a powerful spirit though, you know, you have to understand, even when she was alive in this human physical body, she understood energy, certain things. Sometimes she'll pop up in my psychic space and be like, I need you to text Jay and to tell him this. Right? And I'll be like, yo, your grandma showed up. She needs you to do whatever. And he'll be like, oh yeah, she showed up in my dreams a couple of times. Okay, I'll deal with it. Right? That's a rare occasion because the thing is she has no harm. There's a very strong psychic and telepathic connection between me and this friend already because he has intuitive gifts. Right? And so those are kind of more rare of occasions. Now with that guy, right, he does not have the permission to just access me whenever. I have to, you know, create that connection. But also, too, as a medium, you have to be respectful, right? A spirit, what I tell people, sometimes people go, oh, talk to my father and blah, blah, blah. And there's something I want to know. And there's this secret he kept in this lifetime. I have to go, you have to understand. If he was like that in this lifetime, he may not want to give me the answer to that secret now. His personality and who he was is still who he is, right? The soul essence.
But there's no advancement of consciousness. There's no growth of consciousness.
Sometimes there is. There is at times, but sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's a spirit that had a very troubled relationship with their son and they were a certain way, right? I had that case very recently and, you know, this guy came to me and he said, are you medium? And he found me on Instagram and I said, yeah. And he goes, I want you to read for my father. I didn't get to say goodbye. We had a very tumultuous relationship. And first thing I felt was like, I started crying. I was like, oh my God, there is so much regret and heaviness and sadness around both of you. I said, you'll feel better once we do this. And, you know, there was abuse, there was, you know, whatever, there was different things. But the father passed away in that perspective now, you know, after his, what we call the life review, where you're shown everything. His father had become after seeing all this, his father was in a very different state. Right, so he brought up specific instances of this young man's life and certain things that had happened between them. But he was speaking from this perspective of somebody who had seen their life review, felt regret for decisions he made, and wanted to communicate now with his son from that state. Right? Long story short, there was peace on both ends. The son heard what he needed to hear. He got the closure he needed. Right? And this soul, you know, had seen, okay, this was what I did with this last incarnation. But sometimes there are souls that, like you said, they choose to be like, they're going to hold on to the no, I'm right, even though I'm not, or defend their actions. It's different. It's free will.
Have you ever encountered a soul that has grown a lot, that's just a different level of consciousness?
Yes.
To where maybe it's even hard to deal with, or you don't understand their level of intellect, or I don't know. I would think that once one is able to travel and exist in higher dimensions, that just think about when you're a baby, the level you're on, can't meaningfully communicate with an adult, with a smart adult,
yes,
and vice versa. So I would think, I don't know if it would be like that. I would think as you elevate to a higher level of consciousness, or maybe or a situation where they don't want to be bothered, like they're just so detached.
Not detached usually. I've never really dealt with detached. I've dealt with ones that have had a complete and total perspective change and are going through a lot of evolution outside of a body, right? To where who they were on Earth to their families is completely different once out of the body, because the body It's kind of like a tool. It's the greatest school in a sense, because when you're in a non-physical reality, and when you're in what I refer to as lives between lives, right? Because you're in that state before you come into the next whatever, you're actually in a powerful point of creation as a soul. Depending on what choices you made in that lifetime, but most people. And there's been souls that have been so, made very poor decisions, treated people very badly with the last lifetime they're in, that all of a sudden are like an ascended master up there, very enlightened, right?
Do they have any punishment?
The punishment more so plays out in the human physical reality, but there are varying degrees. Because like I said, there's a spectrum. I've seen some really scary things. Like, for example, I remember moving to a certain place in LA. It was the last place I lived in LA before I came to Orange County. And, I'd always lived in much nicer places. I'd lived in like resort-like communities for a long time, but I had just transitioned my life to being a healer. And so what did I do? I had to cut my lifestyle down. I had to trust in God and my guides that everything was going to be given to me and more, and humble myself and go from a really nice, beautiful, big home and a really nice car to still having a nice car, by means, but like a place that was not like I was used to. And I remember my neighbors were actually healers and intuitives as well. And I remember one of them saying, Carla, there's some very interesting energies and spirits around here. I wasn't prepared. Okay. And he's one of my good friends, and he said to me, he's like, there's this one house I don't even like to walk by. And I said, why? He goes, I want to see what you see when you go by it. And when I walk by, first on the way over there, I said, this house over here, I said, this house is weird. I was like, weird things happen to the people that move in there, huh? He's like, yeah, there's been different married couples, different couples move in there. Every time I said they break up, no matter how happy they are, right? Every single time they're not there long. He's like, yeah. And I said, yeah, because a man hung himself. He committed suicide in that home over a destroyed relationship. And he torments anyone who comes in there that has a happy one, right?
How is he able to do that?
He's not passed to the light. He's what you call a wayward spirit or an earthbound spirit, sometimes referred to as a hungry ghost or wanderer.
A vengeful.
Yes.
So it seems like
that's a punishment in itself.
Is it? So
that
it's
is
not comfortable for him?
No. So
what about the guy who hasn't fully transitioned yet? Okay, no. What about people who are deceased, right?
Okay.
And you deal with them, and it's a normal type of dealing. Where are they at?
Most of them are.
No. I'm saying, are they in the
like
same? Since you have access to them, are they in the same place where that wanderer is?
No. Oh no. Are you kidding? Like if I call in somebody's father who, was a decent human being, just lived an average life, weren't necessarily in service like you are, right? But they lived a good life. They tried to do their best. Oftentimes I'll just see them there lounging in like a comfortable chair, drinking whatever their favorite drink was.
So do you think that is their reality for that spirit world, or that's just what you're able to see? It's since you're a human.
It varies.
Okay.
It varies. Because if they were somewhat spiritually awakened in previous lifetimes, etc., they have the ability to come in and out, visit their family very freely, much more freely than a normal spirit. Actually manipulate matter.
It seemed like that would be horrible to be able to visit your family, and they're moved on, and they
no.
Look, the reality is they're gonna forget about you. They'll talk about you, but it gets less and less over time.
But you have to understand, a spirit that's already passed on, they don't see it that way. You're more connected automatically to that higher wisdom and understanding of all that is. So you don't care.
Okay.
Because you also don't have the physical body to necessarily feel those types of emotions, and you don't have that same ego attachment that comes with a human conscious mind, right?
Gotcha.
So they're kind of like, they're more, I guess you would say neutral. That kind of like.
So I have something that happened to me one time. This was in 2020.
Okay.
And this was I had taken LSD, right? Just microdosing and regular doses. But this one day I took a heroic dose by accident. Right?
Okay.
So it actually was an incredible experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was at my gym at first working on content, and it was just too strong. I gotta go home. So my assistant was taking me home, and I'm in the passenger seat of my car, and I reclined my seat all the way back.
Mm-hmm.
And something was I was trying to be normal, right? But I took a lot. So someone was like, "Knock it off, bro. Just submit. Just chill out."
You just gotta let it
And
go.
I put my head back, and I just submitted, right? And I felt like I was on a mission through space. And then I appeared into this place, right? And I'm gonna just use the terms what feels appropriate to say, but like some kind of astral plane, right?
Yes.
So like if I turn these lights out, the vibe is like that. It's just in here is very like esoteric feeling, right?
Absolutely.
And I felt like I was in a space like that. Now, a friend of mine who I just encountered or spoken to, his father died about a year before that, right? And in this place, it was me and his father.
Yeah, he spoke
right?
to you.
His father was intact, like his
Yeah.
whatever his healthiest, strongest version of
State,
himself.
exactly.
He was
in
like
his life,
that.
his peak of his life.
And he communicated with me, and I don't recall it being any words, but he
Okay.
just spoke to me for a message to give his son, my friend. And I was like, okay. I opened my eyes and I called him immediately, like, bro, all right, this is the situation. I took this LSD, closed my eyes, boom.
Yeah.
I experienced your father, and he wanted you to have this message,
Yes.
right? And he was kind of like, who told you that? You know what I'm saying?
The veils were lifted, right? When there are certain, and the thing is, ancient cultures did utilize these things. They utilized these plants and these things that would increase the levels of DMT in the body. Because DMT, right? It's known as the spirit molecule, basically. And when you actually were on that dose of LSD, you kind of were able to go into the state that, say, somebody with my abilities has, right? Like
I was in a state of a chemical imbalance, right? Technically, because imbalances could be like someone having more testosterone than the next person.
Exactly.
But this was a psychological chemical
Yes.
imbalance. I had way more serotonin than average, right? And this is interesting about LSD. LSD binds, so the classic psychedelics are LSD, psilocybin, MDMA, and I believe ketamine, right? They all do the same thing, but they're all different because they're shaped, the molecules are shaped different. So LSD binds to the 2A serotonin receptors better than serotonin. You know what I mean? So it's like the ultimate experience, right? So the thing, that's why it feels sharper and better, but also could be scarier for some people. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen that before. But all my experiences with it was extremely positive.
And think about it too. I mean, it makes sense because, intuitives are people like, I work greatly from what they call the theta brainwave state.
Your neocortex begins to slow its brainwaves down, and your brainwaves move into alpha. And in alpha, that's the imaginary world where the inner world is more real than the outer world. You could still hear the outer world, you could sense it, but more of your attention is in the inner world. How many people are with me? Now, if you allow your body to fall asleep and your mind is awake, that's called theta. That's what I call twilight. Now, if you've conditioned your body to be the mind and your body is now asleep, it means it's no longer the mind, which means instantaneous change can happen.
That's why they say kids until a certain age, they can take on things, good or bad, they can pick things up very quickly. Why? Because they're in that theta, highly programmable state. Well, when you're talking about certain types of intuitives, people with certain spiritual gifts, etc., their brainwaves, when you measure them and you were to actually look at them, on a monitoring comparison to a quote unquote normal human being, just somebody who doesn't function that way, they have different, the predominant states of the brainwave that they are in, or even just all day long, or even that of, say, the monks and the sages, those who spend all that time in meditation, which I don't. I meditate every day, but I'm not there hours and hours a day, right?
We got shit to do.
Yeah, but it's like even down to the chemicals in the brains of people who have these types of abilities. It's different, right? It's different than, say, a normal person walking around, right? And so that is kind of what allows, also that connection to whatever, right? Can you achieve these things yourself? Yeah. For myself, I don't, personally, I love my mushrooms. That's one thing I do love, and a microdose, right? Everything else I don't really do, because for myself, I don't really need anything to be able, if I want to astral project and leave my body, I can do so within seconds. I don't need to go into a meditative state. All I have to do is focus my energy there, and I can do what I need to do, right? And eventually what I like to train my clients is to get to that state on your own, to where you need nothing, to where that is your natural state of being, that you are so trained that you can direct your energy, your consciousness to just respond. Right? I remember when I first began theta healing, it was very difficult to first get into that theta state. I'd try over and over and over again. And one of my teachers said, Carla, you're actually a natural, you're very whatever, you're overthinking it. Just go up. Just go up. That's all she said. You don't need to follow the process. That's for people who don't know how. She's like, you're already kind of there naturally. Right? And so these types of things, right? But in order to do so, it's like you're literally changing your brainwave state from, from your beta, your delta, whatever it is, instantly, right? But it's like anything else. Once you train yourself to do it, and this is what I do day in, day out, I can just consciously go, okay, this is where I need to be. 2 seconds, I'm there.
And I've been studying all of this stuff a lot as of late. My words, your words, our thoughts are literally physical things, right? Following me. So they can measure our thoughts.
EEG provides an image of electrical activity in the brain represented as waves of varying frequency, amplitude, and shape. It can be used to measure brain activity that occurs during an event, like the completion of a task or the presentation of a stimulus, or to measure spontaneous brain activity that happens in the absence of a specific event.
So according to the law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, right? Just changes forms. So it's always here.
Yes.
So the energy that I'm generating in my brain to come up with a thought, right? I manifest it by saying it, right? I can say very nice things to you, and my words will physically affect you.
Yes.
It can make you feel good.
Absolutely.
I can smile at you and you feel good,
Yeah.
right? So all of these things, this is magical, esoteric. These things are real. These things are very practical, and they're magical, however you want to say it, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter about beliefs, because what people believe. Beliefs
Yes,
are not
exactly.
aligned with reality. Reality is reality. Objective truth is objective truth. When someone walks in to a job interview, right, they're sitting in the waiting room, right? They are probably nervous, they're slouched out, down like this. They're making themselves small, unseen. You know what I'm saying? When in reality, they should be in the bathroom like this in the mirror, like, I got this, I'm gonna kill this. You know what I'm saying? Because what they're doing is now they're spiking their testosterone levels. The higher the testosterone, the more confidence you have.
Yeah.
The more confidence, I walk in a room with confidence, I'm affecting whoever's interviewing me, right? They're looking at me as a competent person. They're looking at me as somebody reliable that can help them, right? They want a strong battle buddy, you know what I mean? Versus me going there, slouched under, high cortisol levels, right? I'm stressed. Nah, stress for me is fuel, right? And this is magical because we can control this right here, you know what I'm saying? And the more people will accept that and understand that, the more powerful that people will be culturally. And I do see a shift in society, a shift in the culture. It's going to take a while, but people collectively, their consciences are becoming aware of some of these things, right? We have so many podcasts, and I love the fact that everyone has a podcast, because these are confident people who have some kind of gift that they're giving to the world. And I'm listening. I'm a receptor. I'm an antenna. I want it. I'm here for it. I don't know it all. Like, shit, you might got something for me that I didn't know was out there. So I've been really open to a lot. You know, of course, I'm filtering things through because I'm very much so a skeptic, right? But you know, I'm finding some really powerful things and some dope tactics and tools that I'm implementing into my regimen, into my life. And I know there's other people doing the same thing.
Exactly.
It's just, we live in a fascinating time, right? I would love to see what life's like in 200 years from now, right? How society and technology and things like that will be. Because I foresee that what we call technology, you know, there's a term called the singularity, right?
Hello, mortals. Technological singularity, the point at which artificial superintelligence will evolve so fast that predicting the future becomes impossible. Name took from the black hole singularity, where the laws of physics break down. Since the past century, the advances in almost every field of science kept growing exponentially. Only 100 years ago, the Wright brothers created the first aircraft. Now we want to colonize Mars.
The singularity is a fear that people have that our technology will reach a state of so much intelligence, especially artificial intelligence, that we can't turn the machine off and it can take over, right? I don't see that, right? I see a different type of singularity. I see a singularity starting here with us as human beings, right? Really mastering or getting close to mastering our bodies, like as far as hormonal and chemical outputs, right? Physical, all of that, right? And integrating our biological technology with plants, mycelium, cannabis. We have cannabinoid receptors in our bodies, LSD, all of these psychedelics. We have the it fits perfectly into our brain, right? Also with man-made technology, you know what I'm saying? Water, hydroelectric fields in space. I see a singularity of man, plant, nature, technology, internet, all of that, right? And once we achieve that, think about this. Mastering oneself, right? Mastering botany, right? Herbs, medicine men, medicine women, voodoo, whatever witches, whatever you want to call it, right? Mastering the earth, right? Mastering technology and mathematics, right? Mastering these devices, mastering the water, because listen, water is everything.
Oh, I know.
It's everything, right? Once I see a singularity of that, at that point, we will be interstellar people. We will be multi-planetary species, multi-galactic species. And I'm going to say this, contrary to what everyone believes that if there's life outside of us, we're inferior. No thanks. I reject that notion. I can see that we're the first ones. Life starts here, right? Look at all we can do is see what we can see, right? And they can see pretty far, right? There's nothing, like, we give off a certain glow on this planet because we create all of these different, pieces of technology that gives us comfort or whatever, right? But you see the glow, right? You see it. It's the only planet lit up like it is. Why would, with that, us as humans, as far as we know, if there's been billions of species on this planet, most of them are extinct already, right? None of which has been able to manipulate the physical world like we can, right? To create microphones and cars and airplanes and air conditioning. So far, it's only us, so far, that we know of, right? So if life is in an abundance throughout the universe, right, which is, there's a probability of that, why would we think that life would be like the weirdest life here on Earth? We're the oddballs. We're the only ones on Earth. So I doubt that if there's life outside of the Earth, which I don't see, I doubt if there was, I'd be repressed to not believe that there would be no different than all the rest of the life here on Earth. It's my little spiel, my little intergalactic spiel, But listen, we gotta go. But I really appreciate you for coming down. I would love for you to tell people where they can find you at, social media, wherever, people that might be in need of your services.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to, reach me, my social media is just like a photo album of my life, which is kind of random. But my website is guidedbydivine.com. So just guidedbydivine.com. And then I'm on Instagram. It's at Carla Maria XOXO, and that's Carla with a C.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hope y'all minds were open and receptive to, someone as talented as Carla that has things to share with you guys. And see y'all next time. Got it. Peace.